The new generation Saab 9.3 is generally thought of as a good looking car. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can do to these to make them look better. On top of that, some people also like to differentiate themselves from the average 9.3 owner and provide a different cosmetic look to their car. That is precisely what we'll be discussing today, 10 cosmetic modifications for the exterior of the car to help improve the look. Whether you have a sedan, a convertible, a wagon, whether you have a linear, all the way up to the Turbo X, there are mods on this list that will apply to your car. And we're actually going to divide this list into two sections. The first section will apply to all models, body styles, and trims. And the second section will only apply to some or will be OEM upgrades for lower trimmed cars. So regardless, there's going to be stuff for you in this video. Let's get started. The first and arguably most crucial modification you can do to your 9.3 to improve its looks are wheels, and secondly, suspension. Here is what my 9.3 looked like when I purchased it. It had these 16-inch wheels on it. It did not look like an aggressive car whatsoever, but I upgraded to these 18-inch Sport Edition P3 wheels shortly after purchasing it. If you have a lower trim 9.3, there are a wide variety of higher trim 17 and 18-inch OEM wheels that you could swap on here, but if you want something aftermarket like I did, there's a ton of fantastic options out there that'll look great on these cars. I also mentioned suspension because when you upgrade to bigger wheels, your car will sit a bit higher, and so to counter that, I installed some Maptune lowering springs and Bilstein B8 shocks on this car. I'll link that video in the top corner. That's not only going to improve your handling, but it's going to lower the car, not too much to where it's undrivable, but actually give it a much more aggressive stance. Modification number 2 is a big one, and that is body kits and bumpers. So until recently, there actually was a body kit that was offered for the 9.3 from a company called AZ Performance. They are based in Europe. They offered a different front bumper and rear bumper that was really unique. However, it appears that they no longer sell these. I'll put some clips on the screen here of what it looks like. This is from my buddy Joey's car. If you've been to Saab owners conventions, you've probably seen his car before with the body kit. If you're someone who wants a wide body or something like that, there aren't any companies that make fender flares or that sort of stuff for Saabs. You'd have to do something like that yourself or buy something generic, which might not look the best. One saving grace for you facelift individuals, those with an 08 Plus, is the Griffin front bumper. This is a fantastic OEM Plus upgrade, which is a much more aggressive front bumper with different grills, fog lights, surrounds, etc. Really helps the front of the car look much more aggressive. In addition to that, if you have an 08 Plus bumper, because of the diffuser in the rear is a different style, there are a few brands such as Maptune that offer a more aggressive dual exhaust rear diffuser that you can install. So unfortunately, that AZ Performance kit does appear to be no longer available, but there are still some other options out there if you want to get creative. Another thing you could do is hybrid bumpers. I've seen a few people do these where they essentially will take the top half of their factory bumper and combine it with the bottom half of another bumper. Some people will do these with different Saab bumpers, like a pre-facelift bumper with a facelift bumper, or I've seen some people do it with like a bottom half of a BMW bumper. It's been done. It's going to require a lot of custom work and body work, but if you can do it, you can make it look nice, it'll really help make you stand out from the rest of us. Modification number 3 is very general, and that is paint or a wrap. This, similar to the suspension and wheels, kind of applies to all cars generally speaking, but if your car is a bland color or you don't like the color, or maybe after 20-30 years the paint has just completely gotten sun faded or destroyed, you could consider a respray or a vinyl wrap. I actually got this car repainted in the factory midnight blue, but wrap or paint is something that can totally transform the look of your 9.3 and really make it super unique. Cosmetic modification number 4 is a very simple one, and that is a honeycomb front grille set. Now, depending on if you have a facelift or pre-facelift, there are a variety of options available. One of them is from Maptune. They have a myriad of different colors and options, whether you have facelift or pre-facelift. A video where I installed my front grille can be found in the top corner. I went with the chrome, which really accentuates the midnight blue paint very well. Hopping to the rear of the car is modification number 5, and that would be a rear spoiler. Now, I want to touch this one carefully because unfortunately there is only one good rear spoiler option I have seen out there for the sedans. That is offered from Maptune. I'll put a picture of the screen on the screen of what it looks like. For wagons, I believe there are some Hirsch options and some other, options out there as well for just depending on your body style. But I want to be very careful here in saying that it's very easy to buy a generic wing, like you see the STI wings put on Honda Civics, for example, and slap that on one of these, and it just does not fit the car at all, and it honestly looks very bad. So if you're looking for a rear spoiler, be very careful with what you pick. Make sure it fits the car. This is just my personal advice. But in addition to that, if you don't have an Aero, you could just start off with an Aero lip spoiler. I'll link a video in the top corner where I installed that on my car years ago. It was a great little modification. Still have it on there to this day. You could also get what's called a roof spoiler. I installed one of these in my Turbo X. It was just a generic roof spoiler. It actually looked very good. It was very subtle. It just stuck on to the top of the back window with some 3M tape. Number 6 is a little bit more of a unique modification that I actually quite like on these cars, and that is adding a Swedish front license plate. Now, for one, this is probably only going to apply to those of you that live in the United States, and particularly those of you that live in the United States in states where they do not require a front license plate like Arizona. So if you want a Swedish plate, I think it's a great way to cover up the ugly bumper holes that come on the front bumpers of these cars naturally. And if you're looking for a Swedish plate, well, I have been fortunate enough to get genuine plates from some very generous subscribers, but you can maybe find a genuine one on eBay, for example, or on some of the Saab Facebook groups. But if you don't care if it's genuine or not, you can just go on Amazon, or there's a variety of other websites that just make generic fake European plates that you can stick on there. And some of them you can even customize the lettering. The 7th modification you can do to your car to help make it look better is painting your brake calipers. Over the years of wear and tear, a lot of times your brake calipers just kind of look corroded, rusty, gross, and just overall not appealing. So in addition to painting your brake calipers, you could also consider doing some drilled or slotted brake rotors as well, like I have on my 9.3. But painting the brake calipers is something that'll really help them pop and kind of make them an accent piece of this whole area of the car instead of being an eyesore that you're trying to hide behind the wheel. I have a video in the top corner where I painted the brake calipers on my Turbo X. If you watch that video, you'll see at the start they were this really ugly, faded, corroded black, and in the end they were this beautiful, vibrant silver that contrasted with the rest of the car very well. Let's move on to part 2 of this video, which is modifications that only apply to certain models and trims depending on what model and trim you currently own. And let's start with number 8, which is an Aero body kit. So this applies to both pre-facelift and facelift cars. If you have an Aero already, then I'm sorry, but you can skip this one. But the Aero body kit on the pre-facelift cars essentially consists of a front lip right here, the side skirts, and also the rear bumper valance in the back for a dual exhaust. All of these parts, to my knowledge, can still be bought new. The one part that you will for sure never find used is an Aero front lip. These always get busted, and I see people all the time looking for used ones. You will not find a used one. You have to buy them new from Saab parts, but it's 100% worth the investment. And if you don't have an Aero, it is probably the best cosmetic modification you can do on this list, in my opinion. But if you have a facelift, there are still some options as well. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just a lower lip. It is a whole different bumper. For the front bumper, the lower valance is much more aggressive and has different moldings, etc. It is a whole new bumper that is required. You might be able to find that used or at a junkyard, and same goes for the rear bumper as well. A little bit more aggressive, and it'll also give you that dual exhaust option. This 9th modification only applies to pre-facelift cars, meaning cars from 2003 to 2007 with the red taillights. I mentioned red taillights because the ice block taillight upgrade is a fantastic modification to help just change the rear end of your car and how it looks. This is a very, very common modification on the sedans. However, it's also an option for the sport combis as well as the convertibles. One thing to pay attention to is with the convertibles, there is a third brake light in the middle that on the facelift cars is clear, whereas on the pre-facelift they're red. So if you do that, you want to make sure to get the whole set on your convertible so you don't have mismatching pieces. Our 10th and final modification takes us to the rear of the car. I've kind of hinted at this already earlier and discussed it a bit, but a dual exhaust on your 9.3 can really help make the car a lot more aggressive looking. Now, V6 Aeros and even 2.0 cross-wheel drives in the later year 9.3s all came from factory with the dual exhaust. I previously had a single exit exhaust on my 9.3, and while it didn't look bad, when I upgraded to this dual exhaust from Maptune, it just completely transformed the rear end of the car, made it look way more aggressive. That's all for today, guys. There are 10 modifications that you can do to your 9.3 to help improve its looks. Now, I will note that I actually just thought of an 11th modification I'll throw in here very quickly, and that is wheel spacers. I should have thought of that while I was writing the script for this video. I didn't, but wheel spacers, great little upgrade to help improve the stance of the car overall. I'm sure there are tons of other suggestions that you all could offer, maybe some specific products for things like spoilers that you've used on your 9.3 that looks great, that you can link or advise people to down below in the comments. Another good one, for example, could be changing out these bumper strips. Some people prefer in Europe, they want the light. People in America, for some reason, don't want the light, so you could swap those to the EU or the US version, depending on where you live. But that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, found it informative, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already to help me reach my goal of 100,000 subscribers. I have some cool Saab merchandise linked in the description if you're interested in helping support the channel some more as well. I'll see you in the next one.